Hi, let's discuss an important concept in finance referred to as net present value. Net present value is used for capital budgeting decisions. It's also used for asset valuation, like determining of if you're purchasing a piece of equipment or even a business. It's also used in stock valuation. But before I get started, I just want to kind of give you a little bit of break down what really is going on when we're doing these calculations. It's really nothing more of one of the four equations that we use in finance. And I know we use four, if we want to play with interest rates, we have a fifth equation. So really that's all the equations in finance that we need if I minus the statistical formulas. So here's the formula we use. We use the PV formula, and we say if you can tell me what the future rate is, or the future value is, and if I discount it back at a rate, I always tell students when I go up the hill, I multiply when I'm looking for a future value. We call that compounding. But if I'm coming back, we call it discounting. And the way we undo multiplication, like for instance, if 9 times 9 equals 81, if I want to undo it, I just divide. But there's a curious concept in math is instead of dividing, I just multiply by its reciprocal. It makes it a little easier. So that's the formula I'm going to use. And this is the most of your charts in accounting and finance use this little number here. They call it a present value factor. So I'm going to be using this formula. It's one of the four formulas. Now let's go ahead and create a problem. And then we're going to do it on Excel and on the BA2. Let me put a rate here. And let's go ahead and put a future value of $2,000. And the question would be, can you tell me what the PV of this is? Well, absolutely you could. You've got your formula. You'd say that the PV is the $2,000, which is the FV, 1 plus the R, and there's the R, and I'm going to go ahead and make it a negative 1 because I'm going back one period. And I'll just, for lack of a letter, I'll just use X. I know we use that a lot in algebra. Now let me add to this problem and say, what if we have a second cash flow here? We'll say it's $3,000. Well, could you find out what its PV is? Well, again, absolutely. It's $3,000, 1 plus the R, and now, since that's the second period, we discount it back 1 and 2 periods, so that's why it's a negative 2. We'll just call it Y. And let's go ahead and just do one more. Let's say we had 4,000 here. Well, same equation, 1 to negative 3, we'll call this Z. Now if I add all three of these up, we would get the net, because net means adding up, PV, and there's the net present value. Now let's go ahead and try it on Excel and on the BA2. Now I'll pull the BA2 down for a moment because I'm going to just leave this Excel spreadsheet up, and I want to draw a little bit on this Excel spreadsheet. That formula one more time, that the PV equals the FV, 1 plus the rate, and negative periods, reciprocal. And you can see we have FVs here, we have a rate, and we have a number of periods of time, so we can calculate. I'm going to go to the home function, and I'm going to go ahead and do this one first. I'm going to click on this cell here, and we're going to find the formulas and NPV. But before I go any further, I'm going to show you something over here. This right here is this number discounted back one period at 10%. And I use the Excel function of PV. PV, rate, 1 period, and I discounted back $2,000. I made it negative so this number would be positive. I did it again for this one here, and I got this number. So I discounted the 3,000 back 2 periods at 10%. And I did it again with the 4. So in essence, this number, and this number are X, Y, Z. And if I add X, Y, Z up, that's the number. Because I added, this was the X and that's the Y. That's the summation of X and Y. And that was Z. So I added X and Y summation to Z and got that. So really what that is this. Now let me go ahead and click on the Excel spreadsheet one more time. And let's go ahead and do it in Excel. I'm going to look for formulas, and I'm going to go to finance, and I'm going to find the NPV function. I was using the PV function. Now I'm going to use the NPV function, and here it is. And all I have to do is place the rate. And if you look here, Excel does not start with 0. So if you had one, like with the next problem here, we've got an issue in that it doesn't start with 0. So I have to start with 1. So here's 1. And if you take a look, there's the X that was right here. Right there it is. And if I click here and put my second one, there's the summation of the two, and I'll pull this up. And there it is right here. Whoops, I hit my Excel spreadsheet. Let me go ahead and clear that out and make that again. And there it is again. And then I'm going to hit value number 3. And when I hit it, it should sum all 3 of them up, and it should give us the 7302, 77, or 78. Okay. So that does match that. Now let's go ahead and do it with the BA plus. Let me go ahead and clear. The first thing I always do is I clear my work. I hit the second function, and that says clear work, so always clear my work. And now I'm going to go ahead and say I'm going to go do all my cash flows. So it starts at 0. Excel did not. All your financial calculators usually start at 0. Since I don't have anything there, I'll just place 0, and I'll enter it, and I'll go to the next one. Now here's my CO1. That's my cash flow here. So I go ahead and place 2,000, and I enter it, and I go down. And this is a frequency. Some of these problems you may have 3 or 4 the same cash flows, and then the next one would be different. So I could put, if I had 3 2000s in a row, I just put a 3 here. But in this case, I only have 1, so I'll leave it alone. So pull down, and there's my CF2. So I hit my 3000, enter it, and pull it down. There's the frequency again. I'm going to go to my 4000, and I'm going to enter. And then I'm going to come over here and hit my down arrow, and there's the frequency again. Now I have all of them in. Now I'm going to say NPV, and now it's going to ask for that rate here, 10%. So I'm going to go ahead and enter the 10%. Hit the interest rate button. So now it knows it's 10% interest, and I'm going to enter that one. And at that point, I'm going to go hit down, and see NPV. I'm going to hit compute. And there's the same number, 730278. A little bit more lengthy with the BA2 plus. Now, a moment ago, I said we were going to do 2 problems. Here's the second problem. And if you notice, it could be a question that states, I spent 1,000 to receive these cash flows. So what you really have to do is, once you find the answer in Excel, if I wanted to know that, since that was not here, if this one's here, what I have to do is go, well, that's the NPV, but now I have that much less, so the NPV is actually, I'm going to hit the equals, whoops, is actually this, and it'd be minus, I'm going to hit minus 1,000. I could just grab the cell and enter, and that's the real answer. And on the BA2, if I were to redo this, second, clear, and I'm going to make sure that works clear a couple of times. In this case, if I would do this, I'd hit, at this point, CF. At this point, I'd hit the 1,000, negative, enter, and down. And see, it's already got the 2,000. It remembered it, and I hit 2,000, enter, and down. And I hit the 3,000, and I hit the enter and the down. And then I can go ahead and hit the 4,000. Curiously, it didn't erase everything. That's okay. Enter and the down. And see, now I have them all in. I can hit NPV and place my 10% in. This is the interest rate, and enter. And then the down arrow, and then compute. And there's your answer, 630278. So that's how you would do the NPV function in Excel. And if you happen to be doing a capital budgeting problem, which you have an outflow initially to receive these inflows, and that's how you would enter it in and play with it in Excel and the BA2 calculator.